really moved. But Mare is that kind of person who, when you meet her, you just want more of her. She's dangerous that way, like glitter, but in a good way like glitter, because she inspires us to sparkle and shine on our own, and she leaves a path that some of us dared to follow. For those of us making or learning to make or hoping to make artist books in the Seattle area in the 80s and 90s, Mare was who we looked up to. She was our trailblazer who exemplified what was possible, not just on the page, but in the world. She's won numerous awards, had many solo exhibitions, and is in well over 100 public and private collections around the world. One of the things I love about Mare is that she does not just run along ahead. She creates projects and invites you to participate, like my beloved community dictionary. It's a huge boost for an artist of her stature to invite you in on a project. It's a huge boost for us. And this is not the first such community project. I was invited into this one, and Mare asked me to share my word. So I carved this word, leaf. Leaf because I love the green world, wild and cultivated. And leaf because leaf is also the page of a book. The word leaf is where my worlds come together. When I want my world to transform, I turn over a new leaf, and there it is. Mare titled this new work, My Beloved Community Dictionary, because we are beloved community. We nurture, teach, and care for each other. The exhibit upstairs, Power of the Presses, is about community, finding our voices, and being reminded of those whose voices are diminished for all kinds of reasons. It's also about expressing what's possible and dreamed for. The printing press attracts and creates community. Mare's written a beautiful personal essay that's included in Power of the Presses, In Our Hands. This book was created and published by BIMA in conjunction with the exhibition upstairs, and I hope you'll read her essay. I'm grateful to Mare for her generosity and love of community. Please join me in welcoming Mare Blocker. I know.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to bite your hair. Okay. I started this project in 2016, and I'm going to back up a little tiny bit. I learned how to print in 1979, 1980 at the Seal Press, which was run by Rachel De Silva and her partner Dan, and I have to admit I can't remember his last name, sorry. But they had a little print shop in the basement of a building on South Washington Street between, I think, 6th and 7th or someplace down there, Pioneer Square, edge of Pioneer Square. And they taught me how to print on a platen press and set type, and I am so grateful to them for their help and guidance, shepherd me on the way for printing. It was a community print shop in a time that we didn't really have very many community print shops, and they charged me $5 a month to work there. So, you know, I think they set a really good example for how to be benevolent and generous, and I'm eternally grateful for them for the boost they gave me in my printing journey. Excuse me. I started this project in 2016, and I gave out 150 linoleum blocks to people in the community that were printers or that responded to my social media calls, and I got 90 some back. This is the start of the colophon page. There's no, in this book there is no set type. It's all hand carved. I carved most of the type, and besides the prints that people sent back to me. And this is a little, I put this on the back cover of the book, but also on this colophon page. It's inner folio fructus, and then I added the word love. So I have a dictionary collection, and this is on the front title page of one of my favorite dictionaries. It's about between the leaves fruit, and I'm sure you all read this, the motto for the thing. So this is the bound edition, and it's a linked blanket stitch binding. It takes me about 7.5 minutes. I did time myself, minutes per page, and there are 74 pages to sew on. They're individually sewn on and linked to the next one, which I think partly why I chose this binding is because it reminds me of the idea of community, how we're all linked together. And I used red thread because when I was a little kid, a lot of you know me that I'm a native of Seattle, but I also, my family owned the souvenir concession at the public market and the Seattle Center. So I like to say I grew up in the fun forest, but I also grew up with a lot of Filipino farm kids, and we all would play in the back alleys of the public market when we were kids. But one of the things that we did was we all had red string bracelets as a way of, the Filipino kids had a story about how the red string of fate tied us all together. And we wore those bracelets. We made them for each other. It's way before Taylor Swift. We had these bracelets on forever until they would drop off each other, and then we'd tie them back on. And so I used the red thread for the binding as kind of a reference for that bracelet story from my childhood. Also, as you'll see on some of the slides, I love the way the linked blanket stitch binding looks like a suture. And speaking of sutures, I had some stitches this week, but not because of this. Anyway, so I do like the whole suture thing. Catherine took this picture. I've always been drawn to illustrated dictionaries. I love those little pictures in them. I have a collection of dictionaries, and if you've followed me, I use a lot of those little pictures in collage work. I make buttons, magnets, blah, blah, blah. I made some, you'll see some of the printers in this that are here today for this book. I made them a little souvenir button with a dictionary page that I rubber stamped some text on. Anyway, so then you can say hi to them too. Everyone was given a block, but I didn't tell them what the word should be. It was like truly a potluck. Like I wanted to see what people would come up with. And I think, and there's 5 poets in the book too, and their prompt was use it in a sentence, please, sort of like a spelling bee prompt. And then I carved their text from their poems. I did limit them to you can't use more than 50 words. So, because carving text is labor intensive. I intended this project to be a show of gratitude to my printing and art and binding community. And I've always loved the aspect of the democratic multiple. That's partly why I was drawn to printing. Also, my grandfather was a screen printer, and one of the things that we sold as a family, I learned screen printing from my grandfather, and he sold these little signs. I should have put a slide in there because it's so much about who I am. You know how when you're a kid, you don't want to admit that you're following in the footsteps of your parents or your grandparents, but I definitely have followed in my grandfather's footsteps. Anyway, the the whole idea of this was from that Diamond Sutra. And it was commissioned and then given away for free to honor the commissioner's parents. And I really loved that. And so each of the people that participated in this and gave of their time to carve a block will receive a free copy of the pages. This project began as a celebration of my 40th anniversary making books, and it's now year 9 from when it started. And I'm very grateful to Catherine for asking me to get it together to put it up in the gallery. I've been wanting to finish it. I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. Since I started this project, 8 of my immediate family members have died, and I've had to divest 3 estates. I've moved twice and had 2 surgeries. So I had a little bit of life in the middle there. And now I feel like I'm back to working. I'm back to my original studio that my dad and I built in the 80s. And I have a Universal 3 power press there. And the power press, the Vandercook power press, you can just put the paper in the press a button, walk with the press. You don't have to hand crank. That's the only way I'm able to do this project. Each of the words the artist chose tells a story about what they value. Cherished pet, a magical being, a collection, struggles with disease, personal rituals, collections, guiding words. I feel this community collection of words illustrates the dynamic nature of dictionaries and the fluidity of language too. Also, I'm going to go back to Catherine asking me to do this. When Catherine asked me to put this piece in, because it was done, maybe half the printing was done before during the first Trump administration. I told Catherine, I don't think this book is going to have relevance anymore because there's so many political words. And unfortunately, it's still relevant. So I guess that's good and bad at the same time, sweet and sour. Last year, Webster's word of the year for 2024 was demure. This isn't in the installation upstairs, but it's in the book. Their word was demure, from that meme about very demure, very mindful. That was their word. And then I have a list of variant words of the year that on the other side, the right side, that reflect what was happening in those years in my life, and words I would have chosen during that time period. So you can see, like, when I first started it, I am like teaching. I'm grateful for my community. I'm printing. I'm working hard, and then all of a sudden, things start happening, and my mom had a psychotic break. I became a caregiver. My husband got myeloproliferation of his red blood cells, and people started dying in 2020. So cheery, but it's getting back to the, let's go down to 2023, when New Year's Eve, decided to be my own personal disco ball. And I feel like I'm living up to that now. And in 2024, I have learned to be a scuba diver and got certified as a scuba diver, and so I've been doing a lot of swimming. This is there's 2 people that died during this project. Buzz White, my husband, and he was a competitive cyclist. He contributed a print to the book, which we'll see in a minute. So this is his big love of cycling. And Bian Hull, who, if any of you know her, she was a graphic design instructor at Cornish. She also used to have an art cart at the Children's Orthopedic Hospital where she would go around and teach sick kids little art projects as a way to make them feel better, which I always loved that about Beanne. Beanne couldn't decide which print she wanted to put in. She wanted to do oyster, but she also carved covfefe, and it's the covfefe with the little tweets around it with Trump floating around. And so I did the cancer print and scratched it out because I've had a lot of, my brother, my husband, my dad, my grandmother all died of cancer. So this is my action of denouncing cancer and scratching it out of the dictionary, but including it in the dictionary at the same time. And a portrait of me and my dad. One of the things I like to do, I have every single linoleum block I've ever carved, and I started carving linoleum blocks when I was 12. And I have a library now of linoleum blocks, and I like to reuse them. So some of you will recognize this image on the left as an image that's in the book Fancy, and it's about my dad gave his garden to me. So this is an image of the two of us in the garden, and then I added the word for this dictionary project, I added the word release, and then I just I didn't intend to put the word absence next to that, but I had the word absence in my, that I had carved, and then I'll explain how I collated the book in a second, but these just ended up next to each other. I guess I could have given that type a little bit more space there. I didn't hand carve this, that's why that happened. George Bataille is a philosopher that I became enamored with when I was in grad school. And he had this idea of form and how so much of art relies on, like, the artist will think of a form and use that form, and they'll be so stuck on the form they don't, like, really think of other parts of the project. And so he came up with this idea of formlessness and how can artists make things without a form by using a form. And I know, like most philosophers, it's like the circular narrative of question on question on question, but it's something I like to think about. Also inspired by Bataille, and Bataille had a dictionary, and of that he was very influential with the Surrealists. They hung out together, and they made a dictionary at one point that had, like, one person would write cat, and then the next person would write, like, mean, and, you know, like some people write love, whatever. It's a lot about signs, signifiers, that whole chain of how we interpret words. But Rosalind Krauss and Yves Alain Bois came up with this book called Formless in, I'm not sure when it was published, the early 2000s. And they have little essays about art speak, what I like to call art speak words, like entropy. And then at the end of the entropy essay, it'll say, see loss, or see something else. And so instead of reading the book in a linear fashion, you're always jumping around back and forth from one page to the next, which I found really interesting. So when I conceived of this project, I just decided to print the pages basically in the order that I received them from the blocks. I received the blocks, and then I would put my own prints in, mixed in, or put other people's prints in there. And I didn't print them in alphabetical order. I just printed them how I felt that day. And the sheets that people will get, or there's some in the bookstore that are not in alphabetical order, but I have collated them into my interpretation, and partly why I left these unbound is so people could put them in their own interpretation and change them around a little bit. So, yeah. Now I'll show you a few of the pages. This is Katie Higgins White on the left-hand side, and Gabby Cooksey. Gabby's a local artist, as you know, and Gabby's here today. One of the things that I like about Gabby's work is that I think similar to my work is that we reference our past works, our current work. And Gabby told me that these spiders that are in the word steady were used in her first artist book piece. And so she's referencing her first artist book in this piece. And it's about personal growth and personal development. One of the words that there's two words that everyone wants to know what they mean, and quiddity is one of them. And that's Jessica Spring, and she says it's the whatness of something, something's essence, which I love, and also Q. She's the only Q in the book. Like I said, I didn't assign any letters. Everybody came up with their own thing. There was only one letter that didn't have a word that somebody else had sent me, and that was, two. U and Z. So I did both of those. And Virginia Flynn is a Portland artist who I'm not positive of this, but I think she's Jim Carmen's cousin. It's interesting. Jennifer is a local artist. She did the word thistle. Jennifer kind of lives in my neighborhood, and she started hand stenciling her prints and then ran into some trouble, so I carved a second color from her stencil and printed. The last print I did, I said, if I have time, I'll do this. And it seemed like since this started out for my 40th anniversary, I'd done 39 press runs, and I was like, should I print that purple? And then I was like, it has to be 40 press runs. So I carved that little purple and printed it on the day that I did a Valentine with my little niece. So it has that little weird purple Valentine rainbow roll thing. Pando clone. Does anybody know what the pando clone is? This is one of my favorite things in the world. Pando clone is a colony of aspen trees that are all genetically the same. And so it's the largest living organism in the world, and it's a 106-acre single tree. They don't consider aspens individual trees because they're rhizomatous, and I could have a zero out of place, but it's not 400,000. It's 40,000 stems off this one root that make up this aspen forest in Utah. Isn't that cool? This is what dictionaries are about, right? Elaine Green is a printmaker that I went to the University of Idaho with for grad school. She did the word king. And besides Jennifer's color block, the last block I carved was based on the blessing for the inauguration. The bishop in Washington, D.C., and I'm sorry I forgot her name. Anyway, the mercy, grace, loving kindness is based on that. Thought that balanced out the king print. Chris Baldock did the resilience piece. Chris is somebody that responded on Facebook to one of my calls that I've now have met Chris, but at the time was a total stranger to me, was just following me on Facebook and was like, I'm in. And so we ended up having coffee down by the Space Needle, and I gave him his print. And he is a teacher someplace in the Southeast now, so I got to track him down to send him his block. And this is Buzz's print, Xenophobia. Karen's print Within, and Macy's print Scribble. I picked these two prints to go together because I felt like they had the same similar gestural marks to them. And as you can tell, I, having grown up as a little printer's devil in a silkscreen shop, I like a little saltiness to my linoleum blocks, because if I wanted solid black, I would be a silkscreener. That's my... Now you're all going to be like, she's kind of a snot that way, but yes, I am. When I was doing the thing about Buzz for the dedication page, in my mind, the dedication page, I cut this little portrait of Buzz like 4 times, and I was never really happy with it. And Stacy, my little niece who lives next door to me, who was in love with Buzz and spent a lot of time with Buzz as a small child, she used to call him Uncle Mustache, so that's what that is. Another family story next to this is the I Love You, I Said So First is the front page of the fancy book that I published a few years ago after the death of my father. And it's a story about how Stacy's dad, my nephew Michael, my parents raised my 2 nephews, and Michael and my dad had a little thing when Michael would sit next to the front door about the time my dad was coming home and like listen for his truck and like look out the window, and then he would like meet my dad at the door, and they had this competition of who could say I love you, I said so first every day. So I love, if you know me, I love a story, but I feel like this book too has so many stories intertwined. All of our stories are so universally intertwined with each other. I mean, we all have these kind of childhood stories. This is a childhood story from Jamie Lynn Schaefer. She grew up in the Philadelphia area, and she's somebody I met from the College Book Arts Association. She was on the board. And Jamie hand-colored every page with Prismacolor. I don't know, she said something like 24 hours of coloring for 175 pages. Shuju Wong and Jill Bergman. Shuju's from Portland. Jill is from Colorado. I've never met Jill, but we're friendly on Facebook, and so she was like, yes, please. And I just like the way these big animals come together next to them. And I love this pattern behind Shuju's print. Looks kind of like a circuit board, but also like that whale shark, or at the bottom. That's one thing I really want to see, but I don't want to see when I'm scuba. Like the idea of seeing a big animal in the water, but then I'm like, ooh, no, they got too many teeth. Carrie is from the East Coast. Well, Ronnie's from the East Coast too, and they're both book artists I know. The other thing I want to say, I included this orchid print because the last little push of printing this fall, I listened to 2 books on the history of orchids, and how there were orchid pirates, and they would like steal each other's orchids back and forth, and I don't know, I just love that. And I hung Carrie's print across from the press, so while I was listening to this book about orchids, I was looking at her print. Love it. Ronnie is a book artist from the Center for Book Arts, but she also is a flower arranger. Love dogs. If you know me, you know I love a dog. And maybe I'm partial to Dalmatians. And this is two local artists, Rita Tollefson and Vita Collery. Diane did the word frolic, and Diane says that she likes the sound of the word and the fact that it's not something you hear very often. And this is, you know, when I saw Diane's print, I was like, this is so perfect for Diane. And just like I have the whole, I'm going to be a disco ball, this is her statement about her print. I aspire to be in a state of frolicking as much as possible. Yay. And I think that's exactly what my Dalmatian aspires to, too. Craig did the word hinky punk, which is also the other page that I wrote this out because I was like, I'm never going to remember this. It's also the other page that everyone asked me, what is a hinky punk? And it's a small ferry that lights you up to lead you through a marsh or danger. And like over the marshy ground. Amy Redmond, who couldn't be here today, says she considers mountains to be her sacred space, a space of respite. And then Laura Bentley, I'm not sure if she's here or not today. Robin's at her son's birthday party. Gosh, Robin. I don't blame her. Laura did this book, this piece. After she did that, if you've seen it, that red and blue piece where the piece had red and blue printing and you had to put a piece of red plastic over it to see the words on that. It's like a progression of a previous work she had done. And then Bonnie did the word dove. Bonnie has doves as companions and pets. And Bonnie sent me a picture of her model, Tom, who, this was taken, I have this wrong. Tom lived to be 25 or 26, but this was taken when Tom was 24. I've asked a few people to come and talk. So these are the people that agreed to come up to the stage. So if you can come up and I'll forward your word. And you're kind of in, well, not you're kind of in this order. You're in this order. I'm creaking when I sit down too long. Yeah.
I get to go first.
Yeah,
huh?
you're first.
Yes. I didn't think I would be able to remember what I did, but I did remember. Anyway, last Monday was Cesar Chavez's birthday, Cesar Chavez Day. I've always admired him, so I was delighted when I ran across a quote he made about reflection while I was searching for an inspiration for my carving. The quote is, "Our language is a reflection of ourselves." Aha, a perfect quote to include in a dictionary. After that, the idea that using the word reflection itself, reflected, would be appropriate, provided the impetus for the other image. I wanted the word to take up as much space as possible, so carving it at an angle was the way to go. As I carved, I thought about the quote and what Chavez might have meant when he associated language with reflection. Not just words, I was sure, but the use of words, the choice of words, and the way words are presented. Then there is the body language that accompanies words. All of these things are deserving of reflection, both before speaking or writing words and afterwards, to assess the meaning and the possible response of the hearer or reader of the words and gestures. Thanks. And thank you for including me.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair, this is by Lisa, and I am not Lisa, so I can't take credit for this. She wasn't able to come and asked me if I would read what she wrote. She said that I selected the first letter of the alphabet. My background as a Western calligrapher and growing up with a father who is a master Chinese painter and calligrapher is the biggest influence in my development as an artist. What is asemic writing? Asemic writing has the appearance of being a written language but has no meaning. In Chinese culture, calligraphy and painting have long been thought of springing from the same creative source and requiring the same technical skills in execution. The same brush types and variations of line are used in painting. As a Western calligrapher, when we think about calligraphy, the first thing that comes to mind are the 4th to 6th century scribes using square-cut reed quill to make formal letters with superb technical skill. The lines are not free, but move through thick to thin according to the angle at which the pen is drawn over the paper. The letters are static and meant to be readable as enduring texts through the ages. This was their task. Instead, think of the letters as abstract shapes. By starting with letters we know and recognize, we can experiment with abstracting the traditional line, form, and movements to invent your own alphabet. One way to think of this is by compiles to invent something brand new. Think about lettering, which has life and beauty purely as drawing. When practicing manipulated strokes with a pointed or flat brush, not only do I find it meditative, but beautiful rhythmic forms can spring forth. That is what I tried to convey in my asemic page. And she said it took her forever to carve this, and I says, Lisa, you do laser printing and etching. Why didn't you do that? She says, because I didn't have one yet.
Thank you. Oops, did I skip Carl? No.
So I chose Bumbershoot, apparently. I have no recollection of the process of choosing the word. I just remember I really wanted to do this project, and I think I was like the last one to turn my block in. I was very kind of, there was shame and everything. And it was...
Last one, the first deadline.
Right. And I hadn't carved a lino in years, and so when I saw it recently, I was kind of proud of myself, But I think the reason I probably chose Bumbershoot was I always refer to printmaking and letterpress as being this big umbrella, and every type of art form can come under this umbrella and do a print. So you can be a sculptor, and it's the physical manipulation of a plate or a wood or something where you can actually do a sculptural print. If you're a photographer, there's photo litho, photo etching. So, that idea. So I think umbrella kind of stuck in my head, but that was a boring word. We're Seattle, it's Bumbershoot. And I love collections of things. And so, you have the broken umbrella, you have the kind of whimsical one, you have the small folded up one, you have the one that you actually stand inside and you're completely... So I think it was just the idea of this dictionary and kind of like all of the examples also that you would get for a word. So that's, I think, why I have a collection of different types. But yeah, it was just super exciting to be part of it. And yeah, I'm glad to look back at it and go, yeah, okay, I didn't screw up.
Oh, wait, sorry, Jenny, I'm gonna,
That's okay.
okay.
Thanks. Sarah, is that you back there? Oh, okay, good, because you're in this story. It's such an amazing experience to think back to 2017 when I came up with this word. And also, I want to tie it into community and our beautiful printing community. So 2017 was when Sarah Culphin and Amy Redman did the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier. And I got a chance to just meet them along the trail for the hike around Mother Mountain. So we met for a day and one overnight. But that one overnight on Mount Rainier stuck with us as a group of printers that I think probably inspired Amy's Reverence print that was mentioned earlier. And then Sarah Colfan went on to do an absolutely gorgeous reduction cut of Alpenglow on Mount Rainier after this epic hike that they did. So I think what I'd like to point out about this is the Jenny Wilkson who hiked on Mount Rainier in 2017 is so far removed from the Jenny Wilkson today. And wow, I would love to get back to hiking and Alpenglow and that feeling that I had back then. So thank you.
You remember covfefe, right? The word that emerged in a tweet from Donald Trump near midnight in mid-2017, like a digital unicorn, only to disappear 6 hours later. What is that? A secret code? A Scandinavian pastry? A cry for help? A few glorious days, the world became a linguistic playground. Cryptographers dust their Enigma machines. Linguists consulted ancient Sumerian text. And your neighbor was just happy to have something to post on Facebook. Shortly after, a covfefe cafe opened. A beer named No Collusion Russian Imperial Covfefe Stout was released. 21 states issued covfefe vanity plates. A covfefe bill was introduced into the U.S. House of Representatives. A Google Chrome covfefe extension allows for the correction of misspellings in earlier tweets. The United States Patent and Trademark Office rejected over 40 trademark applications for covfefe, ruling that it was too commonly used in various contexts to be trademarked. You've got to admit it was a unifying moment. We were all equally confused. It didn't matter if you were a rocket scientist or a professional kazoo player. We all looked at that word and thought, yep, that's something. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
So, like a lot of other folks, 2017 seems very far away from 2025, and I was having a hard time, A, what my word was, B, what I even carved, and C, the reasoning behind it. So after some sleuthing through my phone, I was able to actually find a picture of my block as I was carving it from the first couple weeks of February 2017. So just into the first few weeks, months of Trump's first term, and really needed some time and space to remind myself to breathe, which is why it's the only thing on the page. At this point, I had been carving for, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years, which, baby carver. I really wanted to focus on the type and focus on the carving that I had done, which is funny to look at it now, so many years later. I've spent the last 8 years after this carving linoleum, but kind of staying all the way away from text and looking at more botanical imagery and illustration instead of words. So I look at this as more of a snapshot of a very specific time, not just in my life in the political world, but also my trajectory as an artist and a carver. And while my art has changed a lot, the word still holds through, not just in the cycle of the political climate that we have come back around to, unfortunately, but also looking at this through the last 5 years of the pandemic, life changes, the reminder to sit and breathe and be okay with the empty space on the page. So, thank you.
Thanks, you guys. I'm going to end up with this slide of Sarah Sowers and my chair. Excuse me. Sarah is a friend from the College Book Arts Association, and Sarah has a collection of miniature chairs. And I love how this chair has those little polka dots around the edge. You know, they're like those little rivet kind of things. And you can't see it in this slide, but I inherited my grandfather's studio, and one of the things when I was building this chair that I knew I had, and it took me a hot minute to find it, I have a coffee can, like most people that have relatives from the Depression. They have like hardware and coffee cans. I have a coffee can of those upholstery stubs. And so you can see I use those upstairs on my chair that I was kind of trying to reference Sarah's chair in the book when I built that. My chair is based on a throne I made for the Multnomah County Library years ago. I rebuilt it. It's sort of, you know, it's got the case for the backdrop. And then at the top of it is a little thing about the history of the typewriter. It's a page that was it was the first thing printed with my first Vandercook in the 80s in the basement. You had to kind of, I don't know what possessed us, but I had a studio underneath a stairway in a basement that I had my Vandercook 219, and I had a little christening party down there. And so when you look at that, all you printers will notice that I had money for a press, I had money for some type, but I did not have any spacing material yet. So there's no spacing material in this, but that's the first thing I printed on my very own printing press. Why the horse head? Everyone's asking me because my name is Mare. And I have had that horse head over the door of my studio for about 40 years. And yeah, and then I printed some fabric with my presses. My presses logo is a tiger, and the slogan for my press is, "I shall make you love books more than your mother," which is was over. I didn't invent that, but it was over the door of a 3rd century Egyptian scriptorium. I just stole that. These are the vital statistics of the project, and I'll let you read these. The highlights are, I like to think of this as the highlight. I had 67,200 steps in front of the Vandercook to print this. And the other thing I like to say is that I started with 1,000 parent sheets, and then I cut them into 4s. I printed prints 4 up, and they're double-sided, so I ended up with 32,185 impressions. Look at this. Totally a labor of love. I couldn't have done it without everybody's contributions, so I really appreciate you. And I'll leave this up, but does anybody have any questions? We have a few minutes, if you do. Yep? It's the Thorndike. You know what? I almost brought it. I had it in my backpack, and a couple weeks ago I dislocated a rib, and so I was like, "Girl, do you need to be carrying a backpack, dictionary in your backpack with this rib?" No, you do not. Did I take a picture of it? No, I did not. It's the Thorndike Illustrated Children's Dictionary. It's from 1941. It was my grandfather's dictionary, and I inherited it from his studio. And also that it's got that really swashy typeface on the cover, which is why my dictionary has, or our dictionary has that swashy typeface, is based on that Thorndike one. Thanks. Anybody else? Yep.
Will there be a volume 2?
Yeah, I don't think so. There's so many people. Okay, so I had the first round. You know, I stopped printing in 2017. I got it up for my retrospective at UPS in kind of this banner form, similar to what's upstairs. And but I didn't finish printing all the blocks. And so a couple, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, I put out another call saying, you know, because I passed out 150 blocks and I got 94 or 95 of them back. And I was like, hey, people, or 90 of them back. I'm like, did you send me, did you have a block that you want to give me? Because I'll take it. And I think 5 people said, oh my God, I forgot about this. Yes, I want to do it. And then I was like, should I start inviting another round of people? And then I was like, let this go. You got to finish this someday. So, yeah. Yeah. So, you know how those encyclopedias, when you bought encyclopedias, or your parents did as a kid, and then you got a supplemental book every year? Maybe, I don't know, maybe extra pages. The nice thing about this linked blanket stitch is I can always cut the last page and add more pages to it, and then cut, sew the cover back on. So I like this because each page is sewn on separately, so I can add or subtract pages. Like, am I angry with Brian? So I'm taking his page out of my book now. You know what I mean? Like, so, it's flexible that way. So, yeah, I never say never, but I might say never on this. I'm just so grateful for everybody's patience, and for Catherine for giving me a little tiny nudge to get it done, and for being retired and having a space to do it. So, yeah. Thanks. There's one more question I'm thinking of.
Not a question, but I just want to say your disco ball look is really working.
With the spotlight here, I have to say, I don't know if it's shining on you guys, but it's shining on the screen, and I'm so mesmerized by it. I'm like, how can I pay attention to what I'm doing? Oh, is it? Okay, good. Good. Well, thank you, everybody. And if you are a participant and I haven't given you book pages yet, I have a bunch over here on the other side of the stage to give to people that I brought today. So, so stay afterwards and I'll pass those out. Thank you, everybody.
I want to remind everyone that at 2 o'clock we have Elizabeth Junwa from the National Museum of Women in the Arts talking on stage, and at 4 o'clock we have Jenny Gao, a fantastic artist and mentor, speaking. And so come on back for that and stick around upstairs, make a print, look at the books, the prints, the broadsides, and socialize. have a beautiful day. Thanks for coming.